Good morning, students. Welcome to Class 10 Biology, lesson number 29. Students, we are all aware that an individual is made up of a number of organ systems, and each organ system has a particular function to perform. For example, the digestive system helps in digestion, whereas the reproductive system helps in reproducing new individuals. The excretory system carries out excretion, that is, throwing out of nitrogenous waste, whereas the skeletal system is responsible for giving the structure to the organisms. But to carry out coordination between all the systems in our body, we have two systems, namely the endocrine system and the nervous system. We have already studied about the endocrine system. In this lesson or this class, we are going to study about the nervous system. First of all, let us see the functions of the nervous system. The nervous system is responsible for controlling all the functions of the various parts of our body. It not only controls them but also brings about coordination and integration between the systems. It is also responsible for high faculty learning, thinking, reasoning, memory, emotions. It also controls the reflex actions, that is, all spontaneous, automatic, involuntary activities of the body. Information about the external as well as the internal environment of our body is also passed on by the nervous system. It controls and coordinates all voluntary as well as involuntary activities of the body. For example, the heart, beating of the heart, breathing, respiration, etc. Now, we all know that the entire nervous system is made up of only one type of cell, and it is known as the neuron. Let us study the structure of this special cell called the neuron. If you see its structure, it is quite different from the other cells that we have seen before. Now, let us see what it is made up of. The neuron consists of three parts: the cyton, axon, and the dendrites. Cyton. It is also known as the cell body or perikaryon, also known as soma. It is mainly present in the brain and the spinal cord. The cell is bounded by a membrane which is known as the cell membrane, and it contains cytoplasm which is known as neuroplasm in this neuron. Neuroplasm consists of most of the cell organelles which are present in an animal cell except the centrosome, and that is the reason why the neuron cannot replicate. That means it does not divide. It contains certain special structures called the neurofibrils which help in transmission of nerve impulses, and also the Nessels granules which are present around the nucleus. Actually, the Nessels granules are small parts of the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and they are responsible for synthesis of proteins. You can see around the cyton there are tiny projections around it. They are known as the dendrites. Dendrites are highly branched small projections which arise from the cyton. Their main function is to conduct nerve impulses from the synapse towards the cell body or the cyton. Now, let us study the long tail that you see, which is known as axon. Axon is a long fiber which arises from the cyton. It may be a few millimeters in length or could be even a meter in length. It is covered by a sheath which is known as the exolemma. The cell membrane which is present in the cyton is known as the exolemma. Above this there is a sheath which is known as the neurolemma. It may have an additional sheath called the myelin sheath. It is also continuous. It is not continuous, but it has certain gaps which are known as the nodes of Renvier. The myelin sheath helps in transmission of the nerve impulses quickly, as well as helps in insulation of the impulses. Synaptic knob. Each cyton or each axon ends in a bulb-like structure called the synaptic knob. It contains chemicals which are called the transmitters. Here you can see in the diagram the neurotransmitters, namely acetylcholine, which is responsible for transmission of impulses from the dendrites to the axon of the adjoining neuron. Synapse. The close proximity between the dendrites of one neuron and the axon terminal of the other is known as synapse, and the gap is known as the synaptic cleft. According to the functions that the neurons perform, they can be classified into three types. The sensory or the efferent neuron, that is the neuron that brings the impulses to the central nervous system. They carry sensory impulses from the sense organs to the central nervous system. Here you can see the red colored structure, that is known as the efferent, the one which is coming inside, or the sensory neuron. Okay. Now, the black structure that you see, that is known as the motor or the efferent neuron. That is, they transmit impulses from the central nervous system to the effector. Okay. In between these two, the structure that you see, the dark structure in the center, that is known as the interneuron, also known as association or connector neuron. They are present in the brain and the spinal cord, and they connect the sensory neuron to the motor neuron. Is it clear? Next, nerve fiber. What is a nerve fiber? Nerve fiber, an axon of a neuron covered by one or more sheaths, is known as a nerve fiber or neuraxis. Axon is divided into two types depending upon the sheaths that cover it. If there is two sheaths on it, that is the neurolema as well as the myelin sheath, then it is known as myelinated nerve fiber. In the first diagram, you can see the myelinated nerve fiber. It is a nerve fiber surrounded by two sheaths. The inner one is known as myelin sheath and the outer is known as neurolema. The myelin sheath is not continuous. It has gaps in between. There are constrictions there which are known as the nodes of Renvier. Non-myelinated nerve fiber, you can see the second one is the non-myelinated nerve fiber. In this nerve fiber, there is no covering. The first covering or the myelin sheath is not present. There is only one sheath, and that is the neurolema. Okay? Now, what are nerves? A nerve is a bundle of nerve fibers, that is axons, covered by a tubular sheath. In the diagram you can see there is a tubular sheath and there are the nerve fibers. They may be myelinated or non-myelinated. It all depends. Most of the nerves arise from the brain and spinal cord and branch out to almost every part of the body. Depending upon the function that they are performing, nerves can be divided into three types. Sensory nerves. They are nerves which have only sensory nerve fibers and bring impulses from the receptor to the central nervous system. For example, the optic nerve and the auditory nerve. They only bring impulses to the central nervous system. Motor nerve. They contain only motor nerve fiber and they carry impulses from the central nervous system to the effector. That, for example, nerve arising from the brain and connected to the muscles of the eyeball, which bring about movement of the eyeball. Mixed nerves. They contain both sensory as well as motor nerve fibers. You can see in the diagram sensory as well as motor nerve fibers. All spinal nerves are mixed nerves, or that means nerves which have both sensory as well as motor nerves. With this we come to an end of this class. Thank you, children. Take care of yourselves and God bless you all.